I came home early from a work trip and found my brother's shoes beside my front door. At first, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Ryan's brown leather shoes were sitting on the mat inside my house, right beside Claire's white sneakers. The same shoes he wore to every family dinner because he thought they made him look successful. I knew them immediately because Ryan had once spent 20 minutes at Thanksgiving explaining that they were Italian, which was exactly the kind of thing Ryan thought people needed to know. I stood there with my work bag still over my shoulder, my keys in my hand, and a stupid smile half frozen on my face because I had come home early to surprise my wife. 10 seconds later, I heard Claire whisper my brother's name from our bedroom. Not shout, not laugh. Whisper. Ryan, stop. That was when the whole house changed. The hallway felt longer than it had ever felt. The air felt thick. The small framed wedding photo on the wall suddenly looked like evidence from a crime scene. I walked toward the bedroom without making a sound. When I opened the door, my brother jumped out of my bed. My wife screamed, and the first thing Ryan said was, "Ethan, calm down." That was almost funny. Almost. There he was, standing in my bedroom, half-dressed, next to the woman I had been married to for 4 years, and somehow he still thought he had the right to manage my tone. I looked at him, then at Claire. Then back at him. "You are in my bedroom?" I said. "Do not tell me to calm down." Claire was crying before she even said a word. She pulled the sheet up like modesty still had a job to do after Betrayal walked in wearing my brother's face. "Ethan," she said. Please, let me explain." I looked at her and felt nothing at first. That scared me more than anger would have. I always thought if I caught someone betraying me, I would explode. I thought I would yell, throw something, demand answers, maybe punch a wall like a man in a bad cable drama. But I did not move. I just stood there and watched my marriage end in real time. Ryan reached for his shirt. "Listen. This isn't what you think." I actually laughed then. One short laugh. Because if there is a more useless sentence than, "This isn't what you think," when a man catches his brother in bed with his wife. I have not heard it. "What do I think, Ryan?" I asked. He swallowed. Claire sobbed harder. Ryan put his hands up like he was the one facing danger. It got out of hand. I looked at him for a long second. No, a grocery bill gets out of hand. A work meeting gets out of hand. You didn't trip and fall into my marriage. His face hardened. That was Ryan. Embarrassment always turned into anger with him because anger felt more powerful. Claire tried to stand. I held up one hand. "Don't." She froze. I walked to the closet, pulled out a duffel bag, and started packing clothes. Claire cried behind me, "Ethan, please don't leave." I kept folding shirts. Ryan said, "You're acting like this is all on me." I stopped. Slowly, I turned around. "Get out of my house." Ryan blinked. "Ethan. Get out." Claire whispered, "Ryan, just go." That somehow made it worse. The way she said it. Soft. Familiar. Like they had already had conversations about me before. Like my house had become a place where my own name was an inconvenience. Ryan grabbed his clothes and walked past me. He paused at the bedroom door, because of course he did. Ryan had never left a room without trying to take the last word with him. "We need to talk when you're not emotional," he said. I stepped closer. He backed up. Smartest thing he had done all day. I said, "The next time you talk to me, make sure there's glass between us or a lawyer beside you." He left. Claire and I were alone. For a few seconds, the house was silent except for her crying. I picked up my bag. She said, "It was a mistake." I looked at the bed. Then at her. "No," I said. "A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. You remembered to lock mine." I walked out. I drove for almost an hour with no destination. My phone kept ringing. Claire. Ryan. Claire again. My mother. Then my father. Then Claire. I did not answer. Finally, I pulled into the parking lot of a cheap hotel off the interstate and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. My name is Ethan Miller. I was 34 years old when I found out my wife was cheating with my older brother. Before that night, I thought my family was difficult, but manageable. I thought Ryan was selfish, my mother was dramatic, my father was cold, and I was tired. That was our family. Not good, exactly. But familiar. Ryan had always been the golden child. He was 3 years older than me, and my parents treated him like a weather event. If Ryan caused damage, everyone else was expected to adjust. When Ryan crashed my father's truck at 19, my dad said, "Boys make mistakes." When Ryan borrowed money from me and never paid it back, my mother said, "Don't let money come between brothers." When Ryan cheated on his college girlfriend, my mother said, "He's still figuring himself out." When I forgot to call my mother before noon on her birthday because I was working a 12-hour shift, she told half the family I had become distant. That was how it worked. Ryan got explanations. I got expectations. I was the reliable son. The quiet one. The one with a steady job, a steady schedule, and a steady ability to swallow things that should have choked me. My mother called it maturity. My father called it being a man. I now call it training. They trained me to believe peace meant letting Ryan survive every mess by handing me the cleanup supplies. Claire understood that before we got married. At least I thought she did. We met at a friend's barbecue in Columbus. She was standing near the cooler, laughing because someone had burned every burger on the grill but kept calling them smoked. She had this bright, easy laugh that made me feel like life did not have to be so heavy all the time. She worked in marketing for a medical supply company. I worked as a project manager for a construction firm. Our schedules were different, but we made it work. Claire was warm in ways I was not. She remembered birthdays. She sent thank you cards. She could walk into a room full of strangers and somehow leave with 3 new friends and someone's recipe for peach cobbler. When I told her about Ryan, she got it quickly. So your brother makes the mess, she once said, and your parents make you carry the mop. I laughed because it was true. I should have remembered that line later. I should have remembered that Claire knew exactly what kind of family she was marrying into. Our marriage was not perfect. No real marriage is. I worked too much. I shut down when I was stressed. Claire sometimes needed more reassurance than I knew how to give. We argued about money, holidays, my family, and why I thought rinsing a plate counted as doing dishes. But I loved her. And I believed she loved me. That was the part that made me feel stupid later. Not that she cheated. That I had built a whole life on belief while she was building an exit through my brother. The signs had been there. They always are. Ryan started coming around more often when I was not home. He said he was helping Claire with little things, carrying boxes from her office, checking a noise in her car, dropping off something from my mother. Claire started defending him. He's trying, Ethan. He's not as bad as you think. I think he feels judged by you. That one still makes me laugh, in a dead sort of way. Ryan felt judged by me. I was apparently supposed to make him feel comfortable while he was slowly moving into my marriage. At family dinners, they had private jokes. Not obvious ones. Nothing dramatic. Just small comments that made Claire smile and Ryan look pleased with himself. One time, Ryan said, "Claire gets it. She knows Ethan's emotional range is basically a locked toolbox." Everyone laughed. I smiled. That was what I had been trained to do. Later, I told Claire I did not like those jokes. She sighed and said, "You know he's just teasing." I said, "Ryan does not tease. He tests boundaries and calls it humor." She rolled her eyes. That should have told me something. But I did not want to be the jealous husband. I did not want to become the paranoid man who sees betrayal everywhere. So I ignored the feeling in my stomach. The worst part about betrayal is not always the moment you discover it. Sometimes it is remembering all the times it stood right in front of you and smiled. The morning after I caught them, I woke up in the hotel with a headache and 17 missed calls. Claire had left voicemails. I listened to one. "Ethan, please. Please call me. I know what you saw was horrible, but I need to explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I deleted it. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That phrase told me more than she meant to say. Not, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Meaning there had been a version where it happened and I did not find out. Ryan texted me at 8:14 a.m. "We need to be adults about this." I stared at the message. Adults. That was rich coming from a man who had apparently confused my bedroom with a hotel. I did not respond. Then my mother called again. I answered because part of me still believed a mother should care when one son destroys another son's marriage. That part of me was about to receive an education. "Ethan," she said, breathless. "Where are you?" "At a hotel." "Oh, honey." The honey almost got me. Almost. Then she continued. "Ryan is devastated." I closed my eyes. Ryan is devastated? He knows he made a terrible mistake. Mom. I found him in my bed with my wife. I know. I know. It's awful. But you need to come home so we can talk as a family. As a family? Yes. This is not something that should be handled in anger. I laughed once. What emotion would you recommend? She lowered her voice. Claire is in a terrible state. Good. Ethan. What? That's your wife. She was my wife before Ryan got into my bed. Silence. Then my mother said, "Please don't say things you can't take back." That was the first warning. She was already managing my reaction instead of facing his action. I said, "Did you know?" She hesitated for half a second. That half second changed everything. Mom. I knew they had become close. My stomach turned. How close? I didn't know this was happening. But you knew something was wrong. I was worried. And you didn't tell me. I didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. I gripped the phone harder. So you protected Ryan. I protected the family. There it was. The family. In my mother's mouth, the family always meant Ryan's reputation. I hung up. Later that day, Claire showed up at my hotel. I do not know how she found it. Maybe my mother. Maybe Ryan. Maybe I was predictable even when my life had exploded. She was waiting in the lobby when I came down for coffee. Her eyes were swollen. She looked like she had not slept. For 1 second, I remembered the woman I married. The woman who danced barefoot in our kitchen. The woman who cried during dog food commercials. The woman who once held my hand at my grandfather's funeral and never let go. Then I remembered her whispering my brother's name. She stood. Can we talk? I looked around the lobby. Here? Anywhere. I should have walked away. Instead, I sat in the corner near a fake plant and let her sit across from me. She started with tears. Then apologies. Then explanations. She said she felt lonely. She said I was always working. She said Ryan listened to her. She said he made her feel seen. She said it started after a fight we had 2 months earlier, when I slept on the couch and left early for work without saying goodbye. I listened, not because it helped, because I wanted to see how many words she would use before choosing responsibility. Finally, I asked, how many times? She looked down. Ethan. How many? She wiped her face. 4. 4. A number makes betrayal heavier. Once can be called a mistake by people who like lying to themselves. 4 is a schedule. I leaned back. Was it in my house every time? No. I nodded slowly. Just sometimes. She cried again. I stared at the table. Then she said, there's something else. My body went cold. She placed one hand on her stomach. At first, I did not understand. Then I did. No. I said. She closed her eyes. I'm pregnant. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. People looked over. Claire whispered, please sit down. I did not sit. How long have you known? 3 days. Is it mine? She covered her mouth. I asked again, is it mine? She started sobbing. I don't know. That was the sentence that cut the last thread. Not the affair. Not even the bedroom. That. I don't know. I left her sitting in the lobby. That evening, I went to my parents' house. Ryan's car was in the driveway. Of course it was. The golden child had run home to the people who always kept the lights on for him, no matter what he burned down elsewhere. My father opened the door. He looked tired, but not shocked. That told me plenty. Ethan, he said. Move. He stepped aside. My mother was in the living room, holding tissues. Ryan was on the couch, arms crossed, looking annoyed. Not ashamed. Not broken. Annoyed. Like I had interrupted his recovery from betraying me. I looked at him. You got my wife pregnant? He stood. We don't know that. I looked at my mother. You knew she was pregnant? She started crying. Claire told me this morning. Before I knew? She was scared. I looked at my father. And you? He rubbed his jaw. Your mother told me. I laughed. So everyone knew before the husband. Ryan snapped. Don't act like you were some perfect husband. I turned toward him. Do not confuse my flaws with your choices. My mother stepped between us. Enough. This is not helping. I stared at her. What would help? Mom. She swallowed. First, we need to calm down. No. Ethan. No, you do not get to turn this into a group breathing exercise. He slept with my wife. She's pregnant. Nobody knows whose child it is. And you are all standing here like the biggest problem is my tone. My father said, you need to think before destroying this family. That line almost made me smile. Dad, I didn't destroy the family. I came home early. Ryan said, you're making this worse. I looked at him. You were in my bed. He looked away. Finally. My mother said, if Claire is pregnant, then we have to think about the baby. That sentence made the room shift. I looked at her carefully. What do you mean? She wiped her eyes. That baby will need stability. I said nothing. You and Claire are married. Not for long. She flinched. You don't know that. Yes. I do. My father said, divorce is not something you rush into because of anger. I laughed. Dad, I found my brother in my bedroom. This is not a burnt casserole. My mother stepped closer. If the baby is yours, you have responsibilities. And if it's Ryan's? Nobody answered. I looked at Ryan. He stared at the floor. Then my mother said the sentence that told me exactly who she was. If the baby is Ryan's, that child still needs a father. And you are the stable one. The stable one. Not the betrayed one. Not the hurt one. The stable one. Like I was a spare tire they could pull from the trunk whenever. I stared at her. You want me to raise his baby? She cried harder. I want you to think about an innocent child. No. You want me to become the cover story. That's not fair. What part? The affair? The pregnancy? Or the part where I'm supposed to put my name on Ryan's consequences? My father's voice hardened. I'm asking you to be a man. I turned to him. No, you're asking me to be a doormat with a birth certificate. Ryan muttered, always the victim. I took one step toward him. My father moved quickly. Ethan. I stopped. Not because they deserved restraint. Because I did. I looked at all three of them. We're getting a DNA test. Until then, nobody asks me for forgiveness, support, silence, or sacrifice. My mother whispered, "Please don't humiliate us." I picked up my keys. You should have asked Ryan that before he took his pants off in my house. I left. The next week felt like living underwater. I hired a lawyer named Rebecca Hayes, a calm woman with sharp eyes who looked like she had heard every possible way people could ruin each other and had run out of surprise years ago. She listened while I explained everything. The affair. The pregnancy. My parents. Ryan. The request that I raise the baby if it was his. When I finished, she said, "Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything verbally. Do not let anyone pressure you into accepting legal responsibility until paternity is confirmed." "Can we do the test before the baby is born?" I asked. "Yes, if Claire agrees to a non-invasive prenatal paternity test." She said she would. Good. Get everything documented. That became my mission. Documentation. It turns out betrayal feels slightly less insane when you put it into labeled folders. Hotel stay. Phone records. Ryan's texts. Claire's confession. My mother's messages. And then Ryan helped me, because arrogance is generous when it thinks it is winning. He texted me 3 days before the test. "Even if it's mine, you're really going to punish a baby because you're mad at me?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I screenshotted it. "Even if it's mine. Thank you, Ryan." Claire and I went to the clinic on a cold Monday morning. She looked exhausted. Pale. Smaller than I remembered. In the waiting room, she said, "I'm sorry." I looked straight ahead. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me." "Good." She flinched, but she nodded. After a while, she said, "Ryan told me you were always going to leave me emotionally." I turned and looked at her. "And you believed him?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to believe someone understood me." I nodded. "And he wanted to believe he could take something from me and still be the victim." She did not argue. That was something. The test was simple. The waiting was not. During those days, my mother called from different numbers after I blocked her. She left voicemails about family, faith, forgiveness, and how babies should not come into the world surrounded by anger. My father left one message. "Ethan, whatever the result is, don't make decisions you can't undo." That was funny because everyone else had made plenty of decisions they could not undo, and yet I was the one being warned. Ryan texted constantly. Insults. Defensiveness. Fake concern. One message said, "You think walking away makes you strong. It just proves Claire was right about you." I did not answer. Another said, "Mom is devastated. Hope you're proud." I did answer that one. "You slept with my wife. If Mom is devastated, send her your location." He stopped texting for 2 hours. A miracle. The results came on a Friday afternoon. Rebecca called me into her office. I knew before she said anything. She slid the paper across the desk. Probability of paternity for Ethan Miller, 0.00%. I stared at the number, 0, a clean, round, merciless 0. The baby was not mine. Ryan was the father. For several minutes, I did not speak. Rebecca said something about legal steps. Divorce. Establishing non-paternity. Protecting myself from being named on the birth certificate. Possible communication through counsel only. I heard pieces of it. Most of me was still sitting with that 0. It was strange. Part of me felt destroyed. Another part felt free. Because, maybe, had been killing me. Maybe the baby was mine. Maybe I had to stay. Maybe leaving made me cruel. Maybe my parents were right. But 0 leaves no room for a family committee. 0 said the truth did not need my permission to exist. I drove home and sat in my driveway for almost 20 minutes. Then I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough for my body to admit what my mind already knew. My marriage was over. My family had chosen Ryan again. And this time, there was a child involved. An innocent child. That was the hardest part. Because the baby had done nothing wrong. But innocence does not turn betrayal into responsibility. 2 days later, my mother organized a family dinner. She called it a healing conversation. That phrase alone should have been illegal. She invited my father, Ryan, Claire, Uncle Paul, Aunt Karen, Cousin Mark, and a few relatives who always appeared when drama needed an audience. I almost did not go. Then Uncle Paul called me. "Your mother is telling people you're abandoning your pregnant wife." I closed my eyes. Of course she is. She's saying Ryan made a mistake, but you're making it worse by refusing to forgive. I laughed once. What a beautiful little rewrite. "You coming Sunday?" I looked at the folder on my kitchen table. DNA test. Screenshots. Messages. Claire's written confession. "Yes." I said. "I'm coming." Sunday dinner smelled like roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and denial. I walked into my parents' house with a folder under my arm. My mother tried to hug me. I stepped aside. Her face crumpled. But she recovered quickly because there were witnesses. Ryan stood near the fireplace with his arms crossed. Claire sat at the dining table, pale and silent. Uncle Paul gave me a small nod. My father looked like he wanted to be anywhere else but did not have the courage to leave his own house. We sat. My mother began. Thank you all for coming. This family has been through something painful, and I think we need to remember that there is a baby involved. An innocent baby. I looked at Claire. She stared at her hands. My mother continued. Ethan, we understand you're hurt. I smiled slightly. That was not a good smile. She hesitated. But hurt does not give us permission to abandon our values. I opened the folder. Ryan muttered, "Here we go." I looked at him. Yes. Here we go. My father said, "Ethan, let your mother finish." No, I said. She's had weeks to write fiction. I brought the source material. The room went quiet. I placed the first page on the table. This is the DNA result. I am not the father. Nobody spoke. Claire began crying. Aunt Karen whispered, "Oh my God." Ryan looked away. I placed the second page down. This is Ryan texting me. Even if it's mine. Before the result came back. Ryan snapped. That was taken out of context. Uncle Paul leaned forward. I would pay cash to hear the innocent context. Ryan shut up. I placed the third page down. This is Claire's written statement that the affair happened multiple times. My mother whispered, "Ethan. Please. No. You wanted family here. Family can hear the truth." My father said, "This should have stayed private." I looked at him. It stopped being private when Mom told people I was abandoning my pregnant wife. Aunt Karen turned to my mother. "Diane?" My mother burst into tears. "I was trying to protect the baby." "No," I said. "You were trying to protect Ryan." Ryan stepped forward. "You're acting like I forced her." Claire lifted her head then. "No," she said quietly. "You didn't force me." The room froze. She wiped her face and looked at me. I made choices. I betrayed Ethan. And the baby is Ryan's. Ethan owes me nothing. For the first time that evening, my mother looked truly panicked. "Claire." "No," Claire said. "You told me if Ethan held the baby, he'd come around. You told me not to push him with the truth until it was too late for him to walk away emotionally." Aunt Karen gasped. My father closed his eyes. I looked at my mother. "You planned to trap me." She sobbed. "I wanted the baby to have a father." I looked at Ryan. "Then tell his father to start." Ryan's face went red. "I never said I wouldn't." I laughed. "You barely said you would." My mother's voice broke. "Ethan, that child is innocent." "Yes," I said. "And that is exactly why he deserves the truth. Not a fake father. Not a fake marriage. Not a family built on everyone being too afraid to say Ryan's name." My father rubbed his forehead. "Ethan, what do you want?" It was the first useful question anyone in that house had asked. "I want a divorce. I want my name off every legal document involving that child. I want all communication through lawyers. I want Ryan to stop contacting me. I want Mom to stop telling relatives I abandoned anyone. And I want every person in this room to understand something very clearly." I looked around the table. I caught my brother sleeping with my wife. Then this family asked me to raise his baby. I am not the villain because I refused. The silence after that was beautiful. Not peaceful. Beautiful. Because for once, nobody could cover the truth fast enough. My mother whispered, "You're destroying us." I shook my head. "No. I'm just not holding the pieces together anymore." Ryan said, "You always wanted to cut us off." I looked at him. "No, Ryan. I wanted a brother." That landed harder than I expected. Even Ryan looked away. I stood. Uncle Paul stood too. My mother called my name as I walked out. This time, I did not stop. The divorce moved faster after that. Claire did not fight much. I think the family dinner had broken whatever fantasy she still had about things being repaired. Ryan's girlfriend left him when she found out the baby was his. My mother blamed me for that too, because apparently I had invented consequences. Ryan posted vague quotes online about loyalty and forgiveness. Uncle Paul commented under one of them, "Try fatherhood first." The post disappeared. Claire gave birth 6 months later to a boy. She named him Owen. Megan sent me one photo because Claire thought I should know he was healthy. I stared at it for a long time. A tiny baby in a hospital blanket. Innocent. Completely innocent. I did not hate him. I never did. I hated what the adults had tried to make him carry before he could even hold his own head up. My mother sent me a message from a number I had not blocked. "Look at him and tell me you feel nothing." I replied, "I feel sad that every adult around him failed him before he was born. That does not make me his father." Then I blocked that number too. A few months after the divorce was final, my father showed up at my apartment. He looked older. Smaller somehow. He said, "Can we talk?" I stood in the doorway. "Ryan's not here, so I guess you can speak honestly." He winced. I did not invite him in. He said, "Your mother and I are having problems." I'm shocked. He accepted that. Then he said, "I failed you." I waited, he continued. I kept thinking protecting Ryan would keep the family together. But it just taught him someone else would always pay for what he did. That sentence should have healed something. Instead, it just made me tired. "You're right," I said. He nodded. "I'm sorry. I believe you." His eyes lifted. "But I don't trust you," I said. He looked down. "I understand. That was more than my mother had ever managed." Claire later sent one message through Megan. "I'm sorry. Not because everything fell apart, but because I made choices and used your flaws as an excuse. I hope one day you have a life that feels peaceful." I read it twice. Then I replied, "I hope you become a better mother than you were a wife." It was not warm, but it was honest. Ryan, from what I heard, became a part-time father with full-time complaints. He showed up when people were watching, disappeared when the work started, and acted offended when Claire demanded child support. My mother still believed I should be involved. She said Owen needed a stable male presence. That word again. Stable. I finally understood what it meant in my family. It meant available for sacrifice. I was done being available. I rebuilt my life slowly. No dramatic revenge. No mansion. No perfect new woman showing up to prove karma had a marketing department. I went to therapy. I moved apartments. I bought new bedding because I could not sleep in the same house where I had caught them. I learned to cook more than 3 meals. I went fishing with Uncle Paul and caught nothing, which he said was fine because fish were overrated and silence was cheaper than therapy. 1 year later, I was not healed. But I was no longer bleeding on command. That matters. So, Ada for divorcing my pregnant wife after catching her with my brother, and for refusing to raise the baby my parents wanted me to call my own. Maybe some people will say I should have stayed for the child. Maybe they'll say the baby was innocent. They're right. He was innocent. But innocence does not turn a lie into my responsibility. My brother slept with my wife. My wife got pregnant. My parents asked me to raise his baby. And somehow, in their version, I was the one destroying the family. But I learned something. A family that only survives when one person keeps swallowing the truth is not a family. It is a hostage situation with holiday dinners. I did not abandon that child. I abandoned the role my family kept assigning me. I was done being the emergency exit for every disaster Ryan created. And if that makes me the villain in their story, then they can finally write one without me in it. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.